Garbage man feeds disabled child without knowing he's a millionaire's son. Marcus Jenkins wiped the sweat from his forehead as he continued his morning collection route in the south side of Chicago. At 42, he knew every street in Lincoln Park, like the back of his hand, but that Tuesday morning something unusual caught his eye. On the sidewalk of Magnolia Avenue, a boy of about 11 sat alone, his back against a tall wall, a small orthopedic brace visible on his left leg. The child watched the passing cars with a distant gaze. Marcus immediately noticed that despite the boy's well-made clothes, he looked worn out, with deep circles under his eyes and a thinness that didn't match his overall appearance. "Hey kid, you okay?" Marcus asked, approaching cautiously. "Waiting for someone?" The boy just stared at him without a word, his brown eyes showing a mix of wariness and curiosity. "You hungry?" Marcus asked, noticing how the boy's eyes followed the lunchbox he carried. Again, no verbal reply, just a slight nod that could have meant anything. Marcus checked his watch. He still had a lot of work ahead, but something about the quiet boy moved him. "You know what? I always bring too much food. My daughter says I go overboard with the rice." He smiled, opening his lunchbox and pulling out a separately wrapped sandwich. "Here, it's ham and cheese. Made it this morning." Hesitant, the boy reached out and took the sandwich. His fingers were delicate, his nails well kept. This wasn't a street kid. Marcus was sure of that. "So why was he alone out here?" "My name's Marcus. What's yours?" The boy took a bite of the sandwich, chewing slowly. After swallowing, his lips moved, but the sound was barely audible. "What?" "Didn't catch that." Marcus leaned in, a little closer. "Ethan." The boy struggled, the syllables coming out clipped. "Nice to meet you, Ethan." Marcus smiled. "You live around here?" Ethan made a vague gesture with his hand, pointing toward the mansions at the end of the street. Marcus nodded, understanding the hint. "Your parents know you're out here?" The boy lowered his eyes and kept eating in silence. "Everything okay at home?" Marcus pressed, sensing something was wrong. Ethan just shrugged, a gesture that spoke louder than any words could. Marcus's radio crackled. It was Tyrone, his co-worker, asking why he was taking so long. "Gotta go, Ethan. I'll come by here tomorrow, same time, okay? If you're here, I'll bring another sandwich." For the first time, he saw a genuine spark in the boy's eyes. With a wave, Marcus returned to the garbage truck, but he couldn't get Ethan out of his thoughts for the rest of the day. Back in the small apartment in Cicero, Marcus was greeted by his 15-year-old daughter, Olivia. Ever since Amanda, his ex-wife, had left them to live with a real estate agent in Miami Beach, he and Olivia had been inseparable. "How was your day, Dad?" Olivia asked, looking up from her math homework. "The usual," Marcus started, then corrected himself. "Actually, no, I met a strange kid today." As he made dinner, he told her about Ethan. With every detail he shared, his concern for the mysterious boy grew. "You think he's being abused?" Olivia asked, sharp. As ever. Didn't seem hurt, just neglected, like no one's paid attention to him in a long time. That night, before bed, Marcus made an extra sandwich and wrapped it carefully. Something told him he'd see Ethan again. And he did. The next morning, there the boy was in the same spot, as if he'd never left. This time, Ethan allowed a small smile as he saw Marcus approach. "Good morning, buddy. Brought you something," he said, handing over a sandwich and a small juice box. "Have you been here since early?" Ethan nodded and pointed to his watch, indicating around 6 in the morning. "And no one came to pick you up?" Marcus frowned, concerned. The boy pulled out a small notepad and pencil from his pocket. With shaky but legible handwriting, he wrote, "No one knows I left." "You ran away from home?" Marcus asked, alarmed. Ethan shook his head vigorously and wrote, "Just out for a bit. I'll go back before they wake up." "But what about your leg? Isn't it dangerous for you to walk alone?" "I can manage," Ethan wrote, a hint of pride in his expression. Marcus glanced at the orthopedic brace. It wasn't a simple model. It looked custom-made with high-quality materials. "You have trouble speaking too, don't you?" Marcus asked gently. Ethan nodded and wrote, "Mild cerebral palsy. Affects my speech and movement." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. How could anyone let a child with special needs leave the house unsupervised? Does your dad know you have trouble communicating? Ethan quickly wrote, "Only have my dad. My mom left when I was a baby." That detail created an instant connection between them. Marcus was also raising his daughter Olivia alone. "I know how that feels. I'm raising my daughter Olivia by myself too. Her mother left us 3 years ago." The boy smiled, as if he'd found a kindred spirit, someone who understood him. From that day on, meeting Ethan became part of Marcus's routine. Every morning he brought something for the boy to eat and spent a few minutes talking to him through gestures and the notepad. Ethan seemed to thrive under the attention, though he remained thin and often drowsy. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now continuing. After 2 weeks of these meetings, Marcus began noticing troubling details. Sometimes Ethan seemed confused, almost dazed. Other times he was restless and anxious. His clothes, though high quality, were often ill-fitting or dirty, as if chosen in a hurry. One particularly cold June morning, Marcus arrived at their meeting spot to find Ethan shivering, huddled against the wall without proper winter wear. "For heaven's sake, kid, you'll get sick like this," he exclaimed, taking off his own coat and draping it over Ethan's shoulders. "Why aren't you dressed warmer in this cold?" Ethan wrote with trembling hands. "Ran out in a hurry, had a nightmare." "Isn't there anyone to take care of you when you wake up scared?" Marcus asked, indignant. The boy hesitated, then wrote, "Have a nurse, Derek, but he sleeps a lot." "And your dad? Works too much, almost never see him." Marcus felt anger rising. How could a father be so neglectful of his own child, especially one with special needs? "Ethan, where exactly do you live? What's your home address?" The boy seemed uneasy with the question, but after a moment's hesitation wrote, "Reynolds. Hare State number 287, end of Oak Lane." Marcus knew that area well. It was the most exclusive part of the neighborhood, where only the very wealthy lived. Homes, no mansions, with high walls and sophisticated security systems. "Your last name is Reynolds?" he asked, surprised. Ethan nodded and wrote, "Ethan Reynolds Carter." Marcus's heart nearly stopped. Carter? As in William Carter, the construction tycoon, owner of Carter Development? Impossible. But it all made sense. The expensive clothes, the high-quality brace, the mansion. "Your father is William Carter?" he asked, incredulous. Ethan confirmed with a nod, not understanding why this was so surprising. Marcus was stunned. He had been feeding the son of one of the richest men in Chicago, a man whose fortune was estimated in billions, whose face frequently appeared in business magazines, and whose real estate ventures transformed the city's landscape. "Ethan, does your father know you go out alone every morning?" The boy shook, his head suddenly looking anxious. He quickly wrote, "Please don't tell. They'll yell at Derek and he'll get mad at me." "But Ethan, it's dangerous for you to walk alone. What if you fall? What if someone with bad intentions approaches you? I like going out. At home, it's very sad. Too quiet." Those simple words hit Marcus like a punch. A child running away from his own estate just to sit on the sidewalk and watch cars go by, all to escape loneliness. What kind of wealth was this if it couldn't provide the basics, attention and affection? That night Marcus barely slept. He tossed and turned in bed countless times, thinking about Ethan, the silent estate, and the absent father. How could someone with so much money neglect their own child like that? "Dad, are you okay?" Olivia asked the next morning, noticing his dark circles. "You look like you didn't sleep." "I'm worried about Ethan," Marcus admitted. "I found out who his father is. William Carter." Olivia's eyes widened. "The billionaire? The one from the luxury real estate ads?" Marcus nodded. "The very same, and from what I gather he hardly sees his son. The boy's left in the care of a nurse who apparently isn't doing a good job." "That's sad," Olivia remarked thoughtfully. "To have all the money in the world, but not have your own father's attention. That's why I always say, sweetheart, we're rich in other ways. We may not have much money, but we have each other." The next day, Marcus arrived earlier at their usual spot. determined to have a more serious talk with Ethan. To his surprise, he found the boy more downcast than usual, his eyes red as if he'd been crying. "What happened, Ethan?" he asked. Crouching to his level, with trembling hands, the boy wrote, "Derek is mad. He found out I leave. He hid my medicine." "He hid your medicine?" Marcus repeated, alarmed. "What kind of medicine? For pain and spasms?" "He can't do that. That's your medication." Ethan seemed resigned, as if this were normal. "He says I'm ungrateful, that I should be thankful he takes care of me." Marcus tried to control his rising anger. "Ethan, I'll be straight with you. I don't think you're getting the care you deserve. Your nurse shouldn't hide your medicine as punishment. That's wrong." The boy lowered his eyes, writing slowly. "Dad is always traveling or working. Derek says no one has patience with me, that I'm too much trouble." Those words broke Marcus's heart. A child shouldn't feel like a burden, especially not to those paid to care for him. "Listen, Ethan, this isn't right. You're not trouble. You're an amazing, smart, strong kid. If you need help, you can count on me, okay?" The boy nodded but didn't seem convinced. After eating the sandwich Marcus had brought, he wrote, "I have to go. Doctor's appointment today." "Will I? See you tomorrow." Ethan shrugged, a gesture that worried Marcus even more. In the following days, Ethan didn't show up. Marcus slowed down whenever he passed that stretch of his route, hoping to find him, but the sidewalk remained empty. His concern grew so much that he started waking up in the middle of the night, wondering if the boy was okay, if he was getting his medicine, if he was being treated with dignity. On the 5th day, without seeing Ethan, Marcus made a decision. After finishing his route, he asked Tyrone to cover the last bit of his shift for him and headed to Oak Lane. Finding the Reynolds estate wasn't difficult. It was the largest property on the street, with an imposing wrought-iron gate and high walls covered in ivy. Hesitant, he pressed the intercom. A woman's voice answered. "Reynolds estate, good morning." "Good morning, I wanted to ask about Ethan. Is the boy okay?" There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Who's speaking, please?" "My name is Marcus. I'm a friend of Ethan's. He hasn't shown up at the place where we usually meet, and I'm worried." More silence then. "One moment, please." Marcus waited, his heart racing. After a few moments, he heard the sound of the gate unlocking. A middle-aged woman in a housekeeper's uniform appeared. "You said you know Ethan?" she asked, her face tense. "Yes, we meet every morning. He sits on the sidewalk of Magnolia Avenue while I do my collection route. I'm a garbage collector. I work in the neighborhood." The woman's expression shifted from suspicion to relief. "Come in, please," she said, opening the gate wider. "I'm Mrs. Henderson, the housekeeper." Marcus followed her along the polished stone path to the entrance of the estate. The garden was impeccably maintained, with subtle sculptures and a crystal-clear fountain. The house itself was an imposing modern colonial-style mansion with large windows and a wraparound porch on the first floor. "Ethan is sick," Mrs. Henderson explained as they walked. "He had a severe spasm episode a few days ago. The doctor came, but he's still weak." "What about his medicine?" asked Marcus, remembering what Ethan had written. The housekeeper frowned. "His medicine? What about it?" "Ethan told me the nurse Derek hid his medication as punishment for going out alone." Mrs. Henderson stopped abruptly, turning to face him. "Excuse me? That's what he told me the last time we met. He said Derek found out about his morning outings and, as punishment, hid his pain and spasm medication." The housekeeper's face paled. "Good heavens. Derek told us the medication ran out and the pharmacy was out of stock. We placed a special order. We've been waiting for it to arrive." "Apparently he lied," said Marcus, holding back his anger. "And from what I understand, this isn't the first time he's neglected Ethan." Mrs. Henderson seemed genuinely disturbed. "Mr. Carter is away on business. He hired Derek with excellent references, but—" She hesitated. "To be honest, I always thought there was something off. Ethan's gotten worse since he started working here, but we could never prove anything." They entered the house, and Marcus was immediately enveloped by the understated luxury of the surroundings. Marble floors, original artwork, furniture that probably cost more than his yearly salary. Everything was extremely elegant, yet cold and impersonal. There were no family photos, children's drawings, or any other sign that a child lived there. "Ethan is in his room," said Mrs. Henderson, guiding him up a grand staircase. "Derek left to take care of personal matters. I've been looking after the boy in the meantime." The second floor was as impressive as the first. They walked down a long hallway before stopping at a white door with the name Ethan in colorful letters. "Let me see if he's awake," the housekeeper said, knocking softly before opening the door. The room was a contrast to the rest of the house. Here there was life. Blue walls decorated with planet and star stickers, a desk with books and drawing supplies, shelves filled with miniature cars and planes. A large window overlooked the garden, flooding the room with natural light. In the center of the room, a large bed held Ethan, lying pale and weak but with his eyes open. "Ethan, sweetheart, there's someone here to see you," Mrs. Henderson announced softly. The boy turned his head slowly. When he saw Marcus, his eyes lit up and he tried to sit up. "Easy there, buddy, don't push yourself," Marcus said, stepping closer quickly. "How are you feeling?" Ethan reached for his notepad on the nightstand. With visible effort, he wrote, "Everything hurts, no medicine." Marcus exchanged a meaningful glance with Mrs. Henderson. "I'll take care of this right now," the housekeeper said firmly. "I'll turn Derek's room upside down if I have to." As she left, Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. "I've been worried about you, you know. I've spent every day looking." "At that empty sidewalk." Ethan gave a weak smile and wrote, "Sorry, couldn't get up." "No need to apologize. It's not your fault." The boy hesitated, then wrote something that made Marcus's heart ache. "I like talking to you. Only one who's patient." "Oh, it's not about patience, it's about respect. You deserve to be heard like anyone else." Just then, Mrs. Henderson returned to the room, her face twisted in anger, carrying a shoebox. "Found it," she said, opening the box to reveal several medicine bottles. They were hidden at the back of Derek's closet along with this. She held up an envelope full of cash. "I think he's been selling some of the medication. It's controlled and expensive. Some bottles are half empty when they should be full." Marcus felt a surge of fury. How could someone be so cruel as to deny a child the medicine he needed to ease his pain just for greed? "We have to report him," he said firmly. "This is a crime." "Mr. Carter returns tomorrow," Mrs. Henderson replied, giving Ethan one of the medications with water. "I'll report everything, show the evidence. Derek will be fired on the spot and reported to the authorities." Ethan looked uneasy. He quickly wrote, "Derek will be mad." "He won't come near you again, I promise," Marcus assured him. "He did something very wrong, and he'll have to answer for it." They stayed with Ethan until the medicine took effect. In less than half an hour, the boy's expression relaxed and he fell peacefully asleep. "Thank you for coming," Mrs. Henderson said as they went downstairs. "If it weren't for you, we might never have found out what was happening." "I just did what any decent person would do," Marcus replied. "Ethan's a great kid. He deserves the best." "Mr. Carter is a good man," the housekeeper said, as if feeling the need to defend her employer. "But ever since his wife passed during childbirth, he's buried himself in work. Ethan was born premature with complications. I don't think Mr. Carter ever knew how to handle his son's special needs." "I get that it's hard," Marcus said. "Raising a child alone isn't easy, I know from experience, but ignoring the boy isn't the answer." Just as he was about to leave, they heard the sound of a car pulling up. A black Cadillac parked in front of the house, and out stepped a tall man in an impeccable suit with a stern expression, William Carter. "Mr. Carter," Mrs. Henderson exclaimed, surprised. "You're back early." "Finished business sooner than expected," he replied, eyeing Marcus curiously. "Who is this man?" Before the housekeeper could answer, Marcus stepped forward. "My name is Marcus Jenkins, sir. I'm a garbage collector and work in this neighborhood. I met your son, Ethan, and—" "My son?" William interrupted, frowning. "What do you mean you met my son?" Mrs. Henderson intervened. "Sir, we have a serious matter to discuss. Please, let's go inside." The three made their way to an elegant office on the first floor. William listened in silence as Mrs. Henderson and Marcus recounted everything. Ethan's early morning escapes, the meetings on the sidewalk, the discovery of hidden medications, and the suspicion that Derek had been selling some of the prescriptions. The businessman's expression shifted from disbelief to anger, and finally to guilt. "How did I not notice?" he murmured, running his hands through his perfectly combed hair. "How did I let this happen right under my nose?" "You're hardly ever home," Mrs. Henderson observed gently. "And you trusted the professionals you hired." William turned to Marcus. "And you?" "A stranger realized my son was suffering while I, his father, saw nothing?" "With all due respect, sir," Marcus replied, "sometimes it's easier for an outsider to notice certain things. I'm not here to judge your choices or your way of life. I only care about Ethan's well-being." "You're right," William admitted, after a moment of reflection, "and I owe you a great deal for looking after my son when I failed to." He stood and opened a desk drawer, pulling out a checkbook. "Please accept this as thanks." Marcus shook his head. "I don't want your money, sir. I didn't do this expecting a reward." "But there must be something I can do," William insisted. "Anything." Marcus thought for a moment. "There is. Spend more time with your son. Ethan is an extraordinary boy, smart, observant, sensitive. He needs his father, not checks or expensive gifts." The businessman studied Marcus for a long moment, as if truly seeing him for the first time. "Do you have children?" he finally asked. "A 15-year-old daughter. I've raised her alone since my ex-wife left us." A flicker of recognition crossed William's eyes. "That can't be easy on your salary." "It isn't, but we make it work. What matters is that we're together." That night, when Marcus returned home, he told Olivia everything. His daughter listened intently, her eyes shining with pride. "You made a difference in that boy's life, Dad," she said, hugging him. "That's worth more than all the money in the world." The next morning, Marcus followed his usual route, though his heart felt heavy. He likely wouldn't see Ethan on the sidewalk anymore, now that everything had come to light. Part of him felt relief knowing the boy would be better cared for, but another part would miss those morning encounters. As he turned onto Magnolia Avenue, he instinctively slowed the truck. To his surprise, someone was waiting on the sidewalk. Not Ethan, but William Carter, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly salary. "Good morning," the businessman greeted, looking slightly out of place. "I hoped I'd find you here." "Mr. Carter," Marcus replied, stepping out of the truck. "Is something wrong with Ethan?" "No, he's fine, improving quickly now that he's taking his medication properly. Derek was fired, obviously, and I've already hired a new nurse with impeccable references and constant supervision." "That's good to hear." William seemed to struggle for words. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday about spending more time with my son. You were right. I stayed by his bedside all night. When he woke up before dawn, I was there. I've never seen such surprise and joy in his eyes." Marcus smiled. "Kids are like that. Sometimes all they need is our presence. And to think I believed I was doing what was best for him, working twice as hard to secure his future," William reflected. "All the while he needed something as simple as my attention. The best investment we can make in our children is our time, Mr. Carter. No amount of money can buy that." The businessman nodded thoughtfully. "I came here for two reasons. First, to thank you in person, and second, to extend an invitation. Ethan asked if you could join us for dinner tonight. He was really excited about the possibility." Marcus was surprised. "I'd love to, but—" He glanced down at his orange uniform. "I'm not exactly dressed for dinner at an estate." William smiled, perhaps for the first time since they'd met. "Ethan doesn't care about that, and neither do I. Come as you're comfortable. You can bring your daughter if you'd like." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. That dinner marked the beginning of an unlikely friendship between two families from completely different worlds. Olivia and Ethan got along immediately. She, patient and communicative, helped the boy express himself better. In return, he fascinated her with his encyclopedic knowledge of science and history, gained from long hours of solitary reading. In the weeks that followed, Marcus and Olivia became frequent visitors at the Reynolds estate. Ethan visibly flourished, not just from his father's newfound attention, but also from the genuine friendship he'd found. William, for his part, completely rearranged his life. He cut back on travel, delegated responsibilities, and began working mostly from home. In the mornings, he sometimes walked Ethan to the curb on Magnolia Avenue to wait together for the garbage truck. One such morning, as they watched Marcus work, Ethan wrote something in his notepad and showed his father. William read it, thought for a moment, and nodded. "Marcus," the businessman called when the garbage man finished collecting the bags from that street. Ethan had an idea he'd like to share. The boy held out his notepad, where he'd written, "I want to help kids. Like me. Can we start a project?" "What kind of project are you thinking, buddy?" Marcus asked, intrigued. Ethan quickly wrote, "For special needs kids without money, give them medicine, equipment, and school." "A foundation," William suggested, looking at his son with admiration. "The Ethan Carter Foundation." The boy nodded enthusiastically. "That's a wonderful idea," Marcus said. "There are so many kids with cerebral palsy who don't have access to proper treatment or specialized equipment." Ethan wrote one more line. "I want you working there." Marcus blinked, surprised. "Me? But what could I do? I don't have medical training or—" "You know how to talk to kids. You're patient. You respect us." William placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Ethan's right. In fact, I'd already been thinking along those lines. Your experience as a single father and your sensitivity toward kids with disabilities would be invaluable for a project like this." "But I'm a garbage man," Marcus said, bewildered. "I'm not qualified to—" "You have the most important qualifications," William interrupted. "Genuine compassion and respect for every person's dignity, no matter their condition. The rest can be learned." The offer was tempting, but daunting. Marcus had been a garbage man for nearly 20 years. It was what he knew, what defined him professionally. "I need to think," he finally said. "Talk to Olivia. It's a huge change." "Of course," William agreed. "Take all the time you need. The idea is just born. We have a lot of planning ahead." That evening, Marcus and Olivia had a long conversation. The perceptive teenager asked the question that really mattered. "What do you want, Dad?" "Not what you think you should do, but what you really want." Marcus reflected deeply. "I've always liked helping people. It's one of the things I appreciate about my current job. I feel like I'm doing something useful for the community. But the idea of doing something more direct, especially for kids like Ethan—" He smiled. "I think I really want this." "Then it's decided," said Olivia, hugging him. The following week, Marcus announced his decision to William and Ethan. The boy was so happy that he got up from his wheelchair, which he used for longer distances, and took a few shaky steps to embrace him. The months that followed were intense. William mobilized his legal team to formally establish the Ethan Carter Foundation. He purchased a large plot of land near the University Medical Center and began construction on a rehabilitation and support center for children with cerebral palsy and other neurological conditions. Marcus, meanwhile, started a technical course in occupational therapy. His hands-on experience with Ethan, combined with the formal knowledge he was gaining, made him especially capable of understanding the needs of children with disabilities and their families. On a Sunday afternoon, about 6 months after that first meeting on the sidewalk, the two families gathered in the garden of the Reynolds estate for a barbecue. Ethan, now stronger and more confident, moved with greater ease, supported by a new brace that allowed better mobility. "I can't believe how much he's improved," Marcus remarked, watching Ethan and Olivia play a board game at the garden table. "The doctors say it's a combination of the right medication, regular physical therapy, and most importantly, emotional well-being," William replied, flipping steaks on the grill. "It seems my son was literally wasting away from loneliness." The guilt was still visible in his eyes as he said it, but Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "What matters is that you changed. Many parents never admit their mistakes, never adapt. You did that for Ethan." "We both did," William corrected. "Without you, I'd still be lost in my business, while my son ran away from home to sit on a sidewalk." By late afternoon, as Olivia helped Mrs. Henderson in the kitchen and Ethan rested in his room, William invited Marcus for a private talk in his office. "The center's construction is nearly finished," the businessman said, showing photos of the beautiful modern building. specifically designed to be accessible and welcoming. We're in the hiring phase. Doctors, physical therapists, psychologists, educators. It's looking amazing, Marcus commented, admiring the facilities. And we're finalizing the administrative structure, William continued. Ethan insists you should hold a leadership position. In fact, he wants you to be the foundation's executive director. Marcus choked on his coffee. Executive director? Me? But William, I'm a former garbage collector with a few months of technical training. I'm not qualified to lead an institution this big. You are, William said firmly. You have something you can't learn in business school. Practical wisdom and a heart truly committed to the cause. We'll have experts handling the technical, financial and medical aspects. What we need in leadership is someone who never loses sight of the Foundation's real mission. Still, it's a huge responsibility, one you won't face alone. I'll be there as board president and Ethan as our special advisor, William smiled. Besides, your daughter Olivia offered to work part-time at reception after school. She has a special way with kids. Marcus felt both honored and terrified. It was an opportunity he'd never imagined having, a chance to change countless children's and families' lives. But it also meant a giant leap in responsibility. Can I think about it? He asked. I need to be sure I can live up to that trust. Of course, but don't take too long. The opening is scheduled for 6 weeks from now. That night, as they drove home in the car, a gift from William that Marcus initially refused but eventually accepted for practicality, Olivia noticed her father's thoughtful expression. What's wrong, Dad? You seem worried. Marcus told her about William's proposal. To his surprise, Olivia didn't seem shocked at all. I knew it, she exclaimed. Ethan told me he was trying to convince his dad to give you an important position. And what do you think? Marcus asked, genuinely interested in his daughter's opinion. Am I qualified for this? Olivia thought for a moment. Remember that time, about 3 years ago, when Mrs. Amanda from the bakery was about to lose her business? You organized the neighbors, set up that online fundraiser, talked to the property owner. In the end, you saved her bakery. That was different. It was something small in our neighborhood. Or when Mrs. Henderson's son, little Tyrone, was being bullied at school. You didn't just talk to him and his parents. You went to the school multiple times until they fixed the bullying problem. Olivia, those were just everyday situations. Exactly, Dad, she exclaimed, exasperated. You've always been leading, organizing, solving problems. You just did it informally, without a title or a salary. Now you're getting the chance to do the same thing, but with resources and recognition. Marcus fell silent, reflecting on his daughter's words. Maybe she was right. Maybe he really did have the necessary skills, just in a different context than the traditional one. Besides, Olivia continued, you always said you wanted to do more for the community. Remember how happy you were when they organized that recycling drive in the neighborhood? Imagine how many kids you can help with the foundation. His teenage daughter's wisdom never failed to amaze him. How did she see so clearly what he struggled to recognize? Thank you, sweetheart, he said, giving her a quick hug as they waited at a stoplight. I think I needed to hear that. The next day, Marcus told William he accepted. Preparations for the foundation's opening intensified. Teams were hired, equipment installed, protocols established. Marcus actively participated in every step, impressing specialists and consultants with his practical observations and his ability to spot real needs that often went unnoticed by the experts. Ethan, meanwhile, took his role as special consultant seriously. Using his tablet with communication software, a big upgrade from his notepad, he offered valuable insights on how to make spaces and services truly accessible and welcoming for children with disabilities. You know what impresses me the most? Remarked Dr. Matthews, the renowned pediatric neurologist hired as the Foundation's medical director during a team meeting. How perfectly the three of you work together. William with the business vision and resources, Marcus with practical wisdom and empathy, and Ethan with lived experience. It's a powerful combination. The night before the opening, Marcus got an unexpected call. It was his old supervisor from the sanitation company. Jenkins, man, it's not every day one of ours becomes the director of a major foundation, he said excitedly. The crew here is putting together a group to come to the opening tomorrow. You mind if we show up? Moved, Marcus replied. Not at all, Tyrone. It'd be an honor to have you there. I'll never forget where I came from or the friends I made along the way. The opening ceremony for the Ethan Carter Foundation was a landmark event. Municipal authorities, representatives of health organizations, and especially families of children with cerebral palsy and similar conditions filled the auditorium of the new center. In the front row, a group of men in orange uniforms stood out, Marcus Jenkins's fellow sanitation workers, all freshly showered with combed hair, proud to witness their friend's new chapter in life. When it was time for speeches, William spoke first, briefly sharing how the foundation had stemmed from his son's idea. Then, to everyone's surprise, Ethan rose from his seat and, with careful but determined steps, approached the microphone. Using his tablet, he typed a message projected on the screen behind him. This foundation was born because a good man stopped to talk to me when I was just a lonely boy on the sidewalk. I hope we can do for many children what Marcus Jenkins did for me, truly see them. There wasn't a dry eye in the auditorium as Marcus took the stage. Wearing a suit for the first time in his life, a gift from William that this time he couldn't refuse, he looked somewhat uncomfortable, but his voice was steady and his words sincere. I never imagined I'd be here today, speaking to all of you. 6 months ago, I was just a sanitation worker doing my route, taking life one day at a time, trying to raise my daughter the best I could. Then I met a boy on the sidewalk, and everything changed. He paused, glancing at Ethan and William. Many people see this story as extraordinary, a sanitation worker and a billionaire becoming friends, starting a foundation together. But I see it differently. I see just two fathers who, despite all their differences, want the best for their children and for every child. Marcus then addressed the families directly. To all you parents of special children, I want to say, you're not alone anymore. Starting today, the Ethan Carter Foundation is a place where your children will be seen, heard, and valued, exactly as they are. A place where they'll receive not just top-notch medical care, but also the respect and dignity they deserve. After the ceremony, as guests toured the facility guided by staff, Marcus found a quiet moment in the center's sensory garden. He sat on a bench, admiring the sunset, painting the sky orange. Ironically, the same color as the uniform he'd worn for so many years. Ethan appeared, walking slowly with his new walker. "Can I sit with you?" he typed on his tablet. "Of course, buddy," Marcus replied, making room on the bench. "How are you feeling about all this?" "Happy. I've never been this happy." "Me too," Marcus admitted. "You know, sometimes I think it was fate that led me to that street that particular morning." Ethan quickly typed back, "It wasn't fate. I watched you for weeks before deciding to stay there. I knew you were different." Marcus blinked in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I saw you from my bedroom window. You were the only one who talked to people while working. You smiled, helped ladies with their bags. I wanted to meet you." A wave of emotion washed over Marcus. All this time he thought he'd stumbled upon Ethan by chance, when in truth the boy had chosen him deliberately. "So you planned our meeting?" Ethan nodded, smiling, and typed, "Best plan I ever made." William found them like that, sitting side by side, laughing like old friends. He joined them on the bench, creating a scene that would have been unthinkable months earlier. A billionaire, a former sanitation worker, and a boy with disabilities united not by obligation or interest, but by genuine affection and mutual respect. "The evening news reporter wants an interview with all three of you," William announced. "What do you think?" Ethan typed immediately, "Yes, I want other kids like me to know we exist." Marcus hesitated. "I don't know if I'm good with camera." "Just be yourself," said William. "That's how you won over my son, and me too, to be honest." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now back to the story. The interview was broadcast nationwide and had a surprising impact. The story of the garbage collector, the billionaire, and the boy who brought them together touched thousands of hearts. Within days, the foundation received hundreds of requests for assistance, along with offers of donations and volunteers. Marcus discovered he had a natural talent for public speaking when the topic was something he deeply believed in. His sincerity and simple language connected with people in a way that polished speeches never could. The Ethan Carter Foundation quickly expanded its operations. In 6 months, smaller branches opened in the outskirts of Chicago. Within a year, they reached other major cities. William mobilized his business contacts to secure ongoing funding, while Marcus kept the original mission firmly in focus: to see every child as a unique individual with potential to be nurtured. Ethan, now 12, had become something of an ambassador for the foundation. With intensive therapy and the right assistive technology, his communication had improved significantly. He could now speak short words, though he still preferred his tablet for more complex conversations. He regularly visited the foundation's branches, talking to the children and serving as an inspiration to them and their families. During one of these visits, on the foundation's 2nd anniversary, Ethan met Sophie, a 9-year-old girl with a condition similar to his. The daughter of a single mother who struggled to care for her, Sophie had recently been accepted into the foundation's full support program. She was shy and withdrawn, refusing to interact with other children or even the therapists. Sensing her isolation, Ethan approached her during a physical therapy session. "I know how hard it is," he typed on his tablet. "I didn't talk to anyone before either." Sophie stared at the words on the screen, surprised that an older boy was speaking directly to her. "Does it hurt to do the exercises?" Ethan asked. She nodded hesitantly. "It hurt for me too, but it gets easier, I promise." That was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Ethan became like an older brother to Sophie, encouraging her during therapy, teaching her how to use assistive technology, and most importantly, showing her that her limitations didn't define who she was. Marcus watched this dynamic with pride. Ethan was no longer that lonely boy on the sidewalk. He had grown into a young man aware of his worth and determined to make a difference in others' lives. At home, Olivia had also flourished. Now 17, she not only worked part-time at the foundation, but had decided to study occupational therapy after high school. Her time with Ethan and other children with disabilities had awakened a calling she never knew she had. "Dad, I got a letter from the university," she announced one Friday evening when Marcus came home. "I was accepted into the full scholarship program." Marcus hugged his daughter, overcome with emotion. Even with his new salary as the foundation's director, which was far more than he'd earned as a garbage collector, private college would have been a heavy burden. The scholarship was a blessing. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," he said. "You're going to be an amazing therapist." "I learned from the best," she replied, smiling. "You've always known how to take care of people." That weekend, as was their tradition, they went to lunch at the Reynolds estate. These bi-weekly gatherings had become sacred for both families. Here there were no hierarchies or formalities, just two families sharing a meal, stories, and affection. During lunch, William made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I've been talking with my accountant and lawyers. I have decided to transfer 30% of Carter Development's shares to the Ethan Carter Foundation. This will ensure a steady flow of resources for the institution, independent of donations or external funding." Marcus nearly choked on his wine. "William, that's huge. We're talking millions of dollars annually." "Billions, actually," the businessman corrected calmly, "and it's exactly what should be done. For years I've accumulated wealth thinking I was building a legacy for Ethan. Now I understand the true legacy isn't about leaving money behind. It's about creating a better world for him and children like him to live in." Ethan, sitting between Marcus and his father, typed on his tablet, "Best early birthday present ever." Everyone laughed. Ethan's 13th birthday was the following week, and preparations for the party were already in full swing. "Actually," William continued, "I have another piece of news. I was saving it for the party, but I can't wait." He stood up and quickly left, returning with a large envelope. "This is for both of you, Marcus and Olivia." Curious, Marcus opened the envelope. Inside were legal documents. As he read, his expression shifted from curiosity to shock. "William, this is a house. You bought us a house." Not exactly, William replied. It's the house next to mine. It's always been family property but was rented out for years. The lease ended and I thought it would be perfect for you. After all, Ethan and Olivia are practically inseparable, and we already spend half our time going back and forth between our homes. Marcus didn't know what to say. The house in question, though smaller than the main estate, was still an impressive property in the heart of Lincoln Park. This is too much, William. I can't accept. Before you refuse, the businessman interrupted. Consider this, it's not just a gift. It's a practical solution. You spend hours in traffic every day between your current home and the foundation. Olivia will start college soon, which is also closer to here. And Ethan, well, he'd be thrilled to have you as neighbors. Right. Son? Ethan nodded enthusiastically and typed, "Please say yes, I've already planned everything. We can install a gate between the backyards." Olivia, who had been quiet throughout the conversation, finally spoke. "Dad, I know you're proud of our little house in Cicero. I am too. It's where I grew up, where we shared so many moments, but maybe it's time for a new chapter." Marcus looked at his daughter, surprised by her maturity. "You really want to move?" "I want what's best for both of us. And honestly, living near the foundation, the university, and our best friends?" She glanced at Ethan, who smiled eagerly. "Sounds pretty good to me." After much thought and a few conditions, like insisting on paying a monthly amount for the house, which William agreed to direct toward an educational fund for the foundation's children, Marcus accepted. The move was scheduled for the following month. The next week, Ethan's 13th birthday party was a memorable event. Held in the foundation's garden so the children they served could also attend, the celebration was a living example of the transformation in everyone's lives. Ethan, who a year earlier could barely communicate and spent days alone, was now surrounded by friends, both children and adults. He proudly guided guests through the space, showing off the facilities and explaining the treatments available. His mobility had improved significantly, and though he still used the walker for longer distances, he could walk on his own for shorter periods. During the party, Marcus found a quiet moment in the sensory therapy room, equipped with lights, textures, and sounds designed to stimulate the senses. Sitting on a colorful poof, he reflected on the extraordinary journey of the last 2 years when he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was William, also seeming to seek a moment of calm away from the party's bustle. "Everything okay?" the businessman asked, sitting beside him. "Everything's great," Marcus replied. "Just thinking about how life can change in unexpected ways." William nodded understandingly. "Sometimes I think I should thank Derek for being so negligent." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "If it weren't for that, Ethan would never have run away, never have met you, and none of this would exist." "Crises often lead us to places we'd never imagine," Marcus mused. "What matters is how we respond to them." Both fell silent for a moment, watching the colorful bubbles rise and fall in an illuminated tube at the center of the room. "You know what Ethan told me yesterday?" William remarked. "That he wants to study universal design when he grows up, to create spaces accessible to everyone, no matter their abilities." "He has a huge heart," Marcus replied, "and a brilliant mind." "That reminds me." William hesitated briefly. "I've been thinking about something for a while. With the transfer of shares to the foundation, we'll need to strengthen the board. People who truly understand the mission and are committed to it long term." "That makes sense. Anyone in mind?" "Yes, actually." William adjusted himself on the poof, turning to face Marcus directly. "I'd like you to consider legally adopting Ethan as your son too." Marcus was stunned. "What?" "I'm not suggesting taking away my rights or responsibilities as his father," William clarified quickly. "It would be a co-adoption. Ethan would officially have 2 fathers. That way, if anything happened to me, he'd stay with someone who loves him and understands his needs. Plus, it would give you legal authority to make decisions for the foundation on his behalf in the future." Marcus was speechless. It was a completely unexpected proposal. "William, I don't know what to say. It's a huge responsibility." "You already took on that responsibility the day you stopped to talk to him on the sidewalk," William replied, his eyes shining with restrained emotion. "We're just formalizing what's already in your heart. Ethan loves you like a father. I'm sure Olivia wouldn't mind having an official brother. Actually, she'd love it, Marcus admitted, picturing his daughter's excited reaction, but it's a very serious decision. I need to think, talk to Olivia, and most importantly, find out how Ethan feels about it. He already knows, William revealed. It was his idea, actually. He came to ask me if it was possible to have two fathers legally. He's afraid that if something happens to me, he'll be sent to some distant relative he barely knows instead of staying with you and Olivia, who he considers his second family. The implications of this revelation struck Marcus deeply. Ethan didn't just see him as a father figure, he wanted to make that bond official, to create a safeguard for his future. It was a display of trust and love that went beyond anything he'd expected. I'll think it over carefully, Marcus promised, moved, and I'll talk to Olivia and Ethan. If we're all in agreement, I'd be honored to officially be his father too. William smiled, visibly relieved. I knew I could count on you, I always could from day one. They returned to the party, where Ethan was about to blow out the candles on his cake. As everyone began singing Happy Birthday, Marcus watched the boy who had transformed his life. Ethan was no longer that lonely, quiet child from the sidewalk. He had become a vibrant, determined teenager full of plans, and now he might officially become his son too. Life truly was surprising. 2 years earlier, he had just been a garbage collector on his morning route, worried about paying bills and raising his daughter alone. Now he ran a nationally recognized foundation, was about to move into a house in Lincoln Park, and was considering legally adopting a billionaire's son. No soap opera writer could have dreamed up such an unlikely story, and yet here he was, living it. When Ethan blew out the candles, Marcus made a silent wish that they would keep building bridges between seemingly distant worlds, connecting people from different realities through what truly mattered: respect, dignity, and genuine love. A week after the party, the Jenkins family began their move to the house in Lincoln Park. The process was exciting, yet bittersweet. Their small apartment in Cicero held so many memories: Olivia's first steps, movie nights under blankets in winter, simple but joyful birthday and Christmas celebrations. Every packed item carried a story. Strange, isn't it? Olivia remarked, as they packed the books from the shelf. I spent my whole life wanting a bigger room, a house with a yard. Now that we're moving to a place like that, I miss this tiny apartment. It's natural, Marcus replied, completely understanding his daughter's feelings. This was our home for a long time, but we can take the memories with us and make new ones in the new house. What will you do with the apartment? She asked. Sell it? Marcus shook his head. Actually, I thought about keeping it and renting it to students. The location is good, near several universities. The rent could help some young person just like you trying to build a future through education. Always thinking of others, Olivia smiled proudly. That's a great idea, Dad. The new house was indeed impressive. Though smaller than the main estate, it still had 4 bedrooms, a spacious living room, a large kitchen, an office, and a beautiful garden. William had hired decorators to prepare it before the Jenkins family arrived, with specific instructions to incorporate their style and preferences. So, while luxurious, the house had a warmth that reflected its new residents' personalities. Just as Ethan had suggested, a gate was installed between the gardens of the 2 properties, allowing easy movement between the houses without going out to the street. Soon, a comfortable routine developed, with meals often shared, and the children freely going back and forth between the 2 homes. Meanwhile, the conversation about co-adopting Ethan progressed slowly. Marcus had discussed it with Olivia, who was thrilled at the idea of officially having Ethan as a brother. The next step was an open talk with Ethan himself, to ensure he fully understood the implications and truly wanted this arrangement. One Sunday afternoon, as Ethan and Marcus played chess, one of the shared passions they'd discovered, the perfect opportunity arose. Ethan, Marcus began, carefully moving his bishop, your father told me about the co-adoption idea. I wanted to know what you really think about it. Ethan looked at him for a moment, then typed on his tablet. I want to make sure I'll stay with you and Olivia if anything happens to my dad. I understand that concern, Marcus replied gently. But there are other legal ways to ensure that, like your father naming a guardian in his will. It's not just that, continued Ethan, his fingers moving quickly over the virtual keyboard. You're already my father in my heart. I just want it to be official. Those simple words deeply moved Marcus. You know this doesn't change anything between you and your biological father, right? William will always be your dad, and he'll always have all the parental rights and responsibilities. Ethan nodded and typed, I just want to have two dads. Lots of kids do. Why can't I? It was a simple and powerful argument. Why indeed? Couldn't Ethan have two fathers who loved him? If this is truly what you want, I'd be honored to officially be your father too, said Marcus, his voice thick with emotion. Ethan's smile lit up the entire room. He stood up, walked around the chess table and hugged Marcus tightly. No typed or spoken words were needed to express what he felt in that moment. The legal procedures for the co-adoption began the following week. Since it was an unusual situation, adoption by a second father without the first losing his rights, the process promised to be complex and potentially lengthy. William mobilized his legal team to navigate the legal intricacies, always keeping Ethan's best interests as the absolute priority. Meanwhile, the Ethan Carter Foundation continued to expand its reach. The model developed by Marcus, which combined cutting-edge medical care with emotional and family support, had proven so effective that it began being replicated by other institutions. Experts from various countries visited the foundation to learn from its innovative approach. During one such visit, an Australian neurologist specializing in cerebral palsy, Dr. Elizabeth Miller, was particularly impressed by the results. What you've achieved here is extraordinary, she remarked after observing a therapy session. I've seen children with conditions similar to those treated here, but I've never seen so many progressing so well at the same time. We believe in a holistic approach, Marcus explained as they walked through the foundation's halls. We don't just treat the physical symptoms, but also the emotional and social needs. And crucially, we involve families in the entire process. That's visible in every detail, Dr. Miller agreed. But there's something more here, something hard to quantify clinically. An atmosphere of dignity. Every child is treated as a whole person, not just a medical case. That's Ethan's direct influence, Marcus smiled. He always insists that children don't want pity, they want respect, and opportunities to show what they're capable of. The Australian neurologist's visit resulted in an invitation for Marcus and Ethan, and by extension William as board president, to present the foundation's model at an international conference on cerebral palsy in Boston. It was an extraordinary opportunity to share their approach with experts from around the world. Ethan, now nearly 14, was thrilled at the prospect of his first international trip. He had made remarkable progress in his verbal communication, able to form short sentences, though he still relied on his tablet for more complex conversations. I'll speak at the conference, he practiced daily, determined to present at least part of his experience using his own voice. The trip preparations coincided with a significant development in the co-adoption process. The judge overseeing the case, initially skeptical about the proposed arrangement, requested a hearing with all involved parties, including Ethan. On the day of the hearing, the Carter-Jenkins family, as they had informally begun calling themselves, arrived at the courthouse dressed in their finest clothes. Ethan, in particular, looked like a young executive in his tailored suit, carefully combed hair and a tie he had chosen especially for the occasion. Judge Winters, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, conducted the hearing in his office, a less intimidating setting than the formal courtroom. This is quite an unusual case, he began, flipping through the file. Normally, adoption happens when biological parents relinquish their rights or are deemed unfit. Here, we have a fully capable biological father who wishes to share paternity legally. Exactly, Your Honor, confirmed the lawyer hired by William. Mr. Carter is not giving up any rights or responsibilities. He is simply requesting that Mr. Jenkins also be legally recognized as Ethan's father, with shared rights and responsibilities. The judge adjusted his glasses, carefully observing everyone in the room. Mr. Carter, are you fully aware of the Legal implications of this request? In case of future disagreements about decisions concerning the child, the situation could become extremely complex. I am fully aware, Your Honor, William replied with conviction. And I trust Marcus's judgment completely when it comes to Ethan's well-being. Over the past 2 years, he has repeatedly shown that he puts my son's interests above everything. The judge then turned to Marcus. And you, Mr. Jenkins, do you understand that by assuming legal paternity, you are also taking on all the responsibilities that come with it, not just in good times, but also in any difficulties that may arise? I understand perfectly, Your Honor, Marcus answered sincerely. In truth, I've already taken those responsibilities to heart long ago. I love Ethan, as if he were my biological son, and I will do everything in my power to ensure his well-being and happiness. Finally, the judge addressed Ethan. Young man, do you have anything to say about this? It's important for me to know that this decision reflects your wishes as well. Ethan glanced at his tablet, then at the judge, and with visible effort said aloud, clearly enough for everyone in the room to hear, I want 2 dads, I love them both. The silence that followed was eloquent. The judge studied Ethan for a long moment, clearly moved by the young man's determination to express himself verbally on such an important occasion. I believe I've heard enough, he said at last. This case is unusual, but the law must serve human needs, not the other way around. It's clear to me that there is a functional family here, where the child's well-being is the top priority. Therefore, I grant the petition for co-adoption. The joy on Ethan's face was indescribable. He alternated glances between William and Marcus, as if he could hardly believe his wish had come true. The official documents will be issued within a few days, the judge continued. Ethan Reynolds Carter Jenkins will be the young man's legal name from today onward. Congratulations to all. As they left the courthouse, Ethan walked between his 2 fathers, holding each of their hands. Olivia followed close behind, smiling broadly. They looked exactly like what they were, a family. Unconventional, certainly, but bound by something much stronger than social conventions, genuine love and mutual respect. We need to celebrate, William declared as they reached the cars. How about a special dinner tonight? Great idea, Marcus agreed. Where would you like to go, Ethan? The young man didn't hesitate before typing on his tablet. Pizza on the terrace at home, the whole family together. It was a simple and perfect choice. They didn't need fancy restaurants or extravagant celebrations. What made the moment special were the people, not the place or the food. That evening, as they enjoyed various pizzas on the spacious terrace of the Carter estate, now officially the home of part of the Carter Jenkins family, under a starry spring sky, Marcus couldn't help but reflect on the extraordinary journey that had brought them there. 3 years earlier, he had been just an anonymous garbage collector, struggling to raise his daughter with dignity in a world that often undervalued his work. Ethan had been a lonely boy, trapped in a silent mansion, neglected despite, or perhaps because of, the wealth surrounding him. William had been a workaholic executive who had lost touch with what truly mattered in life, and Olivia had been a teenager, dreaming of opportunities that seemed out of reach. Now, they had all been transformed by the power of what seemed like a chance encounter on a sidewalk. A simple shared sandwich had set off a chain of events that changed not only their lives, but also those of hundreds of children supported by the foundation. "What are you thinking about, Dad?" Olivia asked, noticing his thoughtful gaze. Marcus smiled, looking at each face around the table. Olivia, his brilliant and compassionate daughter. Ethan, now officially his son too, whose courage inspired everyone. William, who had become not just a business partner, but a true friend and now co-parent. "I was thinking about how life can change completely when we take the time to truly see the people around us," he replied, "and how a small act of kindness can set off something much bigger than ourselves." Ethan, who had been listening attentively, typed a message on his tablet that perfectly captured everyone's feelings. "Our family started with a sandwich on the sidewalk. Now we feed hope to many kids like me." It was true. What had begun as a garbage collector feeding an unknown child had turned into a mission that touched lives across the country. Most importantly, it had created a family where there had once been only lonely individuals, each trapped in their own world of limitations, some physical, others emotional, and still others social or economic. Together, they had learned that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or properties, but in the ability to genuinely connect with others, to see beyond appearances and circumstances, to find value where others see only limitations. And that perhaps was the most valuable lesson they could share with the world, that when we take the time to truly see someone, whether a lonely billionaire or a child sitting on the sidewalk, we open the possibility of transformation for everyone involved. As the night deepened and the stars shone over the city, the Carter-Jenkins family continued their celebration, not just of the legal formalization of their bonds, but of the extraordinary journey that had brought them together. A journey that had begun with a simple act of humanity, a garbage collector who stopped to feed a disabled child, not knowing he was a millionaire's son. The end of the story. Dear listener, if this story touched your heart, share in the comments. Which moment moved you the most? Your support with likes and channel subscriptions helps us continue bringing narratives that inspire and uplift. After all, small gestures, like Marcus's, can transform entire lives.